We want somebody to summarize what you remember from last week's meeting with us. Yes. Is there anybody who will remember just anything from last week's meeting? I know I didn't go far and I didn't really talk much, but just anything that any of you remember from last week's meeting. Yes. Okay. Lizzie?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, Mrs. Sapon.
Okay, thank you, sir. Please,
You're welcome.
last week we learned about biomolecules.
Okay.
We used something like preparing a beverage. Sir, please, can I move on?
Yeah, move on.
So let me go straight to our points. And we said that the biomolecules are the components in a fixed cell. And they interact inside a cell, and through their interaction, they make a cell live.
Okay.
They can also be termed as the living process of the cell. And these living processes, they occur through the following, that is by reproduction, respiration, excretion, digestion, and a whole lot. And we came talking about what we are focusing on when we talk about biochemistry. And we said biochemistry focuses on the component, that is the biomolecules, and the interaction between those biomolecules and how the interaction affects the structure, the function of the structure, and the health of the cell.
Okay.
I think I'll end here for my colleagues to continue.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Oh,
thank you.
Please take chocolate from me. Receive it in Jesus' name. Oh, that's nice.
Amen.
Oh, that's nice. I clap for you from my end. Well done. Well done. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, any other person? Yeah, Lillian. Lillian, are you jealous? Hello, Lillian.
Sir.
Lillian. Yeah, take your own. Take your own.
Thank you. In Jesus' name.
Okay. So let's hear from you. If you do remember anything from last week's lecture. So, Madam Lizzie, thank you for opening the discussion for us and breaking the ice. That's nice. Just a little point of correction. The biomolecules are different from what we call the living processes. Okay, the biomolecules which interact to influence the living processes. Are you okay? The living processes are different, and the living processes result from the interaction between the biomolecules. Are you okay? All right, thank you. Madam Mercy, Mrs. Sophia, please turn off your camera. Okay, don't let me take you off the class. Mrs. Sophia Okra, please, I want to say this again for those of you who were not here last week. Kindly keep your cameras off. Once you turn on your camera, you can't control whatever the camera shows. And so chances are that you are likely to reveal private issues or private images that are not necessary. Are you okay for this class? And you may end up not really liking what you are showing. Are you okay? So please kindly keep your cameras off. I mean, no, it's a no. Keep your cameras off. Your mic, you turn them on when you have a suggestion to make or a question to ask or probably a comment to put across. Are you okay? But please, I beg you, I wouldn't want some of the past experiences showing up again in this class. Are you okay? All right. So, Madam Mercy, let's hear you. Your hand has been up for a while.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope you are well.
By God's grace.
Okay, so in charge,
Okay.
Oh, by God's
Please,
grace.
I heard that the biochemistry is a combination of biology and chemistry to study living matter.
Mm.
And and I also heard that a cell cannot be considered as life or living unless it undergo living process, as my sister said. And the living process, example are the excretion, respiration, reproduction, and etc.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Madam
Thank
Mercy.
you.
You also want chocolate? Okay, receive your chocolate. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe one more person. I think I saw somebody lifted up their hand. Okay. Mrs. Aqua, in charge. Papa, can we hear you? Madam Eunice. Hello, Mrs. Eunice Aqua.
Hello, sir.
Hi, good evening. Hello.
Good evening, sir. Please, I also learned that bioscience. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a biomedical science, biochemistry. That
Oh, Mrs. Aqua, it looks like
the study of structure molecules.
I think your network.
Cell.
Okay.
Okay, and then I also learned that the biomolecules can be a carbohydrate, protein, lipids, nucleic acid, and then that's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Eunice. I clap for you. Well done. Well done. Well done. Take your chocolate in Jesus' name.
I receive it.
Okay. Yeah. Madam Selena, your hand has been up.
Yes, please.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
And how is your labor ward? How are you managing with your clients and the deliveries?
It's not easy, but we are managing.
Managing. So are we in charge that there aren't any problems?
It's not easy. Okay.
Okay. Are you more chocolate, my wife? Into the why?
Sure, Mate.
Okay, uncle.
Please, I also learned that biochemistry is defined as the biomedical science that deals with the study of structure and the interactions that occurs in the biomolecules and its effects on structure. And I also learned that it's a living. They are made up of living cells.
Okay, they occur in living cells.
Yes, they occur in living cells.
Okay, and sometimes outside of living cells.
Okay.
All right. Well done, well done. Hey, I'm clapping for you. Well done, well done. So take your chocolate and it's on the way. All right. So thanks to everyone. Oh, really? Well, I don't have anybody in a waiting room now. The door is open. I mean, the settings are clear. Are you okay? Nobody is held in a waiting room once the class has begun. So, please, if you can't hear me, I would suggest that you refresh your page. Are you okay? Probably maybe coming from your end in respect to your network. Okay. Hey, Rhoda, please turn off your camera, Mrs. Rhoda Asari. One. Mrs. Rhoda Asari, please turn off your camera. Don't let me move you out of the class. Okay. All right, class, I'm saying this again. Please, I beg you, if anybody defaults on this, I'm going to remove you from the class. Under no circumstance should you turn on your camera. Please keep your cameras off throughout the class. If that is permitted in other class, no problem, but not this one. Not this one. I hope I make myself clear. All right. All right, so just as many of you said earlier, can you all see my slide?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just as I some of you had said, exactly so. All right, I'm seeing 3 participants raise their hands. Is there any question?
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening, dear. I hope you are well.
You called that she's in the waiting room and she has been trying, she can't find.
No, there's nobody in the waiting room from my end.
She just called me that she's praying for me.
No, I don't know, but I'm not seeing anybody from the waiting room.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm sharing this video with you. It's just a few minutes. Please, can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So let's watch this. It's just about 4 minutes. So watch it carefully.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll move on. Okay.
In this video, we're going to look at carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. When I say lipids, I'm talking about fats and oils. Life processes depend on biological molecules, whose structure is related to their function. Did you know that living organisms are actually made from quite a small group of molecules? What do you think the most common molecule in you is? It's actually water. About 55 to 60% of an adult human's body weight comes from water. And in some organisms, this can be up to 90%. Your muscles and kidneys are particularly watery, at about 79%, but even your bones are made up of 31% water. Bet you didn't expect that. Okay, enough of water for now. Imagine we removed all the water in your body. What would be left? Well, it would pretty much be just proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids such as DNA. So what are these all made of? Well, carbohydrates and lipids are really simple. They just contain 3 elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins are a little more complex, with 4 or 5 elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sometimes sulfur. Let's start by looking at carbohydrates. There are 3 main types of carbohydrate: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Simple sugars like glucose and fructose are monosaccharides. Sucrose, which is made up of 2 simple sugars joined together, is a disaccharide. And some carbohydrates are polymers that are made up of lots of sugars joined together, and so are called polysaccharides. Starch, glycogen, and cellulose are 3 important polysaccharides. Cellulose is found in plant walls, and starch is the storage unit for surplus glucose made in photosynthesis. Glycogen is the storage unit used by animals for surplus glucose, and is found in the liver and muscle tissues. Starch is tested for using an iodine solution. If the solution turns blue-black, then starch is present. Now on to proteins. Proteins are also polymers, but whereas in carbohydrates the monomer or repeating unit was glucose, for proteins it's amino acids. The protein then folds up into a complex 3D shape, which is held together by weak bonds. The function of each protein depends on its shape. Because enzymes are proteins and the bonds holding proteins together are weak, this is why enzymes denature above certain temperatures. The bonds are broken and the structure of the protein is changed. There are 20 different amino acids that make up proteins, the order of amino acids varies in different proteins, and so 20 different amino acids means an almost infinite number of different proteins can be made. It is estimated that there are about 50,000 different proteins in the human body alone. You will come across proteins nearly everywhere. For example, in cell membranes, where they control the movement of substances during active transport, as enzymes, so in photosynthesis, respiration, DNA copying, and digestion, as hormones, such as insulin, estrogen, and testosterone, and as antibodies for fighting infection. So that's proteins and carbohydrates. Let's end with lipids. Many lipids are triglycerides. These have a single glycerol molecule with 3 fatty acid tails attached. Different lipids contain different fatty acids. Triglycerides are a form of dietary fat found in meats, dairy, and cooking oils. The liver also makes triglycerides. They are used by cells and tissue for energy, or otherwise stored as fat. Some examples of lipids are steroid hormones, cholesterol, vitamin A, and vitamin D. So there you have it, the 3 key biological molecules that are essential to living processes: carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids.
If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.
All right. I hope you all saw it.
Yes, sir.
Great. So what do you remember from the video? What's the Mrs. Humu?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So tell me what you picked up from the video. What did he say the function of carbohydrate was? What's the function of proteins? What's the function of lipids and the nucleic acids? Yes. Yes. Anybody? Yeah, Mercy.
So please, I heard that protein is amino acid, and the function of it depends on the shape.
Okay, so proteins are made up of amino acids.
Yes, and its function depends on the shape.
The shape of the protein. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so can you tell us any one of the functions of proteins in the body? Okay, I'll come to you. Yes, Franca. Hello, Franca. Hello, Mrs. Ochredakun, are you there? Okay, let me go to Beta. Yeah, Beta.
Yeah, protein has 20 different or it's made up of 20 different.
Please kindly speak louder. Your voice is very faint. Hello, Beta.
Yeah, I heard that protein has 20 different amino acids, or is made up of 20 different amino acids, and its functions is that it fights infection. It contains that fight infection.
Okay, so it serves as what? Antibodies, right?
Yes.
Or it can boost the immune system to help fight against infection. All right. Thank you, Madam Beta. God richly bless you. Yes, Nadia.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Sir, I also learned that it helps repair broken tissues.
Okay. Okay, so tissue recovery.
Yeah.
Yes, Gina. Franca, thank you. And Nadia. Yes, Gina.
Please, I've also learned about the types of carbohydrates. So we have 3 types. The monosaccharide, the disaccharide, and the polysaccharide.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any example? Oh, okay. Yeah, Hulera. Okay, Hulera is not ready. Okay, Mrs. Ayinsu, thank you. I've seen your text. Okay. Yes, Abigail.
Sir, please, you said carbohydrates consist of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen.
Okay.
And also, one function of carbohydrates, the main function of carbohydrates is energy production.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, Mary. Mrs. Kunse.
Hello, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Please, I learned about the components of carbohydrates, which our sister said. So that was what I wanted to say.
You learned about what? Components of carbohydrate.
What makes up the carbohydrates there?
Okay. So the elements,
Yeah.
the carbohydrates
Yeah.
and oxygen. All right, that's
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Addison. Christina. Okay. Mariama Yakubu, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, good afternoon. I hope you are very well.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, shall we hear from
please.
you? Yes.
So I learned about the component. I learned about the component. That is the carbon dioxide, oxygen, and hydrogen. And then I learned about the types. That is the monosaccharide. The monosaccharide is simple sugar. And example of polysaccharide, we have three: the starch, the glycogen, and the cellulose.
Okay. All right. Thank you
Thank you.
Oh, that's excellent. Madam Mariama, thank you so much. God bless you. All right. So thanks to everyone. I guess now with this teaser, we are good to go. So in summary, last week, we saw that biomolecules are more or less like the biological compounds or chemical compounds that often occur within cells and sometimes outside of cells. They interact among themselves regularly, and their interaction directly influences what? The living processes in a cell. And so their interaction can affect the normal life, the health, and then the living processes, or probably the structure of a cell. And we saw that sometimes disease may arise as a result of what? Deficiency of some of these biomolecules, or probably a challenge in terms of the interaction between the biomolecules. Are you okay? So when they interact in a wrong place, are you okay? Or they interact in a particular undesirable way, then that can result in a disease outcome. We saw that living organism contains so many biomolecules, and for ease of our study, we group them into two. We have what we call the organic biomolecules and then the inorganic biomolecules. The organic biomolecules consist of what? The proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, and nucleic acid, as one of you pointed out. The inorganic biomolecules rather consist of what? The mineral ions. That is the mineral ions, which we call the sodium, the chloride, the potassium, the calcium, the phosphorus, and all that. Are you okay? And then gases. Are you okay? The oxygen gas, the carbon dioxide gas, and so on. And then the water. Are you okay? Collectively, these three compounds constitute what we call the inorganic biomolecules. Then the organic ones consist of what? Carbohydrate, proteins, lipids, and what? Nucleic acids. As you saw in the video, the organic biomolecules usually contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. In certain cases, they may have nitrogen, sulfur, or phosphorus in addition. Are you okay? As you soon realize. Then we looked at common examples of biomolecules, or probably I think we looked at characteristics of what? Biomolecules. Are you okay?
Sir, please, the slides are not so clear at our end. Please, if you can kindly check it for us.
Okay. Yeah, Christina, you raise your hand. Yes. Christiana. Okay. Yeah, Melody. Melody.
I didn't hear anything.
Melody, can we hear you?
Sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please, I didn't hear anything.
No,
Please,
but
can you go over again?
No, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I said was in reference to what I showed you on the slide. In summary, I said that the biomolecules we have within our cells can be grouped into two main classes. We have what we call the organic biomolecules and what? Inorganic biomolecules. The inorganic ones are the water, the gases, and the mineral ions. The organic ones have been broken down into four subfamilies: the proteins, the carbohydrates, the lipids, and the nucleic acids. Are you okay? So these are the main components or the main classes of biomolecules that we're going to look at. Are you okay? Our emphasis will be more on the organic biomolecules. Are you okay? Because they interact extensively among themselves. And so we would delve more into the organic biomolecules as a foundation to various aspects of their interaction, which we call metabolism, that we'll do later, maybe in a month's time or probably 2 months' time. All right. As I said earlier,
thank you, sir.
You're welcome. As I said earlier, the common characteristics of the organic biomolecules include one, they are organic in nature. As organic, they contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But they may contain sulfur, phosphorus, and nitrogen. Okay, so that is one. Number two, they are highly soluble in organic solvents. Because they are organic in nature, they dissolve very well in organic solvents, such as what? Ethanol or alcohols. They also dissolve very well in benzene and so on and so forth. Are you okay? Number three is that they are able to show what we call yes, Priscilla. Hello, Priscilla.
Sir, please, it's blur again. I can't see anything.
Would you kindly refresh your page? Because I've actually reshared the slide.
I've refreshed it like 3 times. It's still blurred.
It's still blurred.
Yes, please.
Let me refresh my page and see. Okay. All right. Is it better now?
No, sir.
No, please.
All right. Let me go
No,
on.
sir.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me go on with my commentary, and then I'm sure as we get along, things will improve. Okay. Probably it has to do with the network and all that. Okay. So I was talking about the characteristics of what? The biomolecules. And I said number one, they are organic in nature. And because of their organic nature, they usually contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. They may contain sulfur, phosphorus, nitrogen, and even sometimes iron and all that, depending on which biomolecule you are talking about. Are you okay? But generally, they all contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, and what? Some level of oxygen. Because they are organic in nature, they also dissolve in organic solvent. The law of solvation suggests that like always dissolves like. Are you okay? Like always what? Dissolves like. And so if it's organic, then obviously it's going to dissolve in its own. And so it will dissolve better in organic solvent. Are you okay? And these organic solvents include what? They include ethanol, benzene, hexane, ether, chloroform, and etc. They also exhibit what we call stereoisomerism. Shall we all say it together?
Stereoisomerism.
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 All right. Thank you. So when we say stereoisomerism, what are we talking about? It's very simple. You are something like this. All right. Now, are these compounds the same? Why are they not the same? Yes. Bridget.
Say,
Yeah.
though they have the same alphabet, arrangement is different.
Very good. Very, very good. And that's what we talk about what? Stereoisomerism. It has to do with what? The phenomenon where a set of compounds, either 2, 3, 4, 5 set of compounds, may have the same set of atoms, but different what? arrangement. Are you okay? Just as we are seeing here. Now we can even create another one if we want to. So we could have something like this.
Can you repeat it, Claire?
Yeah, I'm saying that we can even have another compound. Maybe like this. Can you see this? And I'm sure you can see that this third compound is also different from what? The first two. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So call these three as what? Isomers. But this phenomenon of changing structural forms, are you okay, is what we call isomerism. So stereoisomerism is the tendency for one compound to exist in, or for one molecule to exist in to exist in different forms. Are you okay? Different forms. And this is not for a joke. In each of these forms, each of these compounds will have unique characteristics of their own, both physically and chemically. Are you okay? So that's what I want to say about stereoisomerism. Mariama, is it Mariam or?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And
All
sir,
right,
please, I
great.
want to suggest something. Please, our
Yeah.
sisters, all of us here, please. Some of us are having a network challenge. And kindly, please, if you ask a question, kindly mute your mic and listen to what sir will tell you. If you have another thing to say, you kindly unmute again. We've been complaining of this thing. It's like still we are doing it. We are the lecturer is saying something. We are all listening, and some of you, your mics are on. So what are you expecting us to do? To listen to what is happening at your background or to listen to the lecture? Please, we should note that some of us are having network challenges. Some of us to join even the lecture, like to join the lecture is even difficult for us. And then this thing has been happening continuously. Please, with due respect, we are not kids.
All right. Thank you, Mariam. Go ahead. I'm sure everybody has heard you. So I want to believe that there will be no repetition. All right. So thanks to all of you. The last thing or the last characteristic about biomolecules is what? Because they are organic in nature, they react very slowly. So you can have a compound like this, maybe glucose plus what? Galactose. Glucose plus what? Galactose, giving me what? Lactose. Yes, Beatrice.
Sir, please, can you take the stereoisomerism again for me?
I said the stereoisomerism, generally, in order not to be very technical, I said it's a tendency for one compound to exist in multiple forms. in terms of their structure or the arrangement of atom in the molecule. Are you okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I illustrated it with the example. Can you see my whiteboard?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you can relate to it, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So that's what I meant.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nafisa, your hand is up.
Sir, please, can you mute that person with the background making noise for us?
Is there anybody making
That
noise?
is at you.
All right. All right. Okay. So let's move on. Please, can you all hear me? Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So that's about the stereoisomerism. I said lastly that because biomolecules are very, very organic in nature, they react very slowly. And I'll show you the example of what? Glucose combining with galactose to form what? Lactose. Can somebody tell me a tissue in the body where this reaction is likely to occur? In which tissue or organ of the body is this reaction likely to occur? I have a large chocolate in my hands. I want to give it to somebody. Who is going to grab it?
Hello, sir. Can I try?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Hello, sir.
All right. So, Mrs. Rebecca, Lucky.
Yes, the breast, sir.
Yes, let's hear you.
I mentioned the breast, the breast.
Oh, okay. That's nice. That's nice. Yes. Nadia, your hand is up.
Okay, the liver.
No, please. The reverse is what occurs likely but not this. Okay, Abigail.
Sir, please, the small intestine.
Hey, madam. No. The reverse is what occurs in the small intestine. Okay, Belinda. Okay, Monica.
I think it's the breast and the liver.
Jira is coming. Daddy, Jira is coming.
Hello, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to reward Mrs. Rebecca and then Monica. I think your answers are right. It's the Monica.
Okay.
So it's Monica and Rebecca that I'm going to reserve the chocolate for. All right. So the answer is what? The mammary gland of the mammary tissue of what? Of the breast. Are you okay? So that's where this kind of reaction is going to occur. Now, if this reaction is made to happen outside of the cell, are you okay? Chances are that it will take so much long time to be able to occur. Are you okay? The reason being that the glucose is organic, the galactose is organic, and the reaction is very, very slow. Even outside of the cell, where you put them in test tubes, you realize that you will heat and heat and heat, and it may take a while. This reaction is very possible and occurs very fast in our tissue because of the presence of what? Enzymes. Because of the presence of what? Enzymes. Because enzymes make reaction what? Faster. And so that's what the enzymes will do. They make the process which is otherwise slow. They make it what? Fast. Are you okay? All right. So that's about the characteristics of biological molecules or biomolecules. Now I want us to look clearly at the individual classes of biomolecules. So let's look at the first one, and then we'll move on to the next one in succession. The first class of organic biomolecule that we're going to look at is what? Carbohydrates. Okay, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates contain, like I said earlier, as organic molecule, they contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, and what? Oxygen. They often conform to the general molecular formula CnH2nO. All right. So like I said earlier, carbohydrates have, among other things, the following characteristics. They contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, and what? And oxygen.
Oxygen.
Yes. And they often conform to this general molecular formula CnH2O. Then you put into bracket N. So what we are trying to say, if you want to expand this, then it's going to be like what? This one. CnH2O. 2N and then what? ON. Are you okay? So this is what we call the general molecular formula of carbohydrate. N is always greater than or equal to 3. N is what? Greater than or equal to what? 3. Now, the third characteristic of carbohydrate is that simple carbohydrates are sweet. Simple carbohydrates are what?
Are sweet.
Very good. They are sweet, but the complex ones, the sweetness decreases with what? Increasing complexity. Are you okay? The sweetness of carbohydrates always what? Decreases with what? Increasing complexity. In other words, as it becomes more and more complex, then it also becomes less and less what? Sweet. So for instance, you realize that simple sugars or simple carbohydrates are more sweet, what we call monosaccharides. Then disaccharides are less sweet. Then you realize that the polysaccharide, some of the polysaccharides are more or less like neutral. They are neither sweet nor bitter. Are you okay? For example, we can take simple sugars like glucose. Okay, please, can you see my slide?
No, please.
No, please.
No, please.
No,
No,
please.
sir.
No, please.
Okay.
No, please.
No.
Yes, we can see now.
Okay. Okay. So now,
It's
okay. Now, if you look at them, what do you see? We have what?
This is too blend.
Sir, please, your network.
Really? Because I was thinking that if it were my network, okay, if it were my network, you wouldn't even hear me. Okay, so let's see. I was just trying to show you a table of the sweetness, are you okay, of different kinds of sugars, are you okay? But since many of you are complaining you can't see, maybe I would have to speak it by word of mouth, or probably just inscribe it on the whiteboard. So you let me work on the whiteboard. Can you see my whiteboard?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So we have glucose, we have fructose, we have galactose, or let's say sucrose. Let me use. So for glucose, its sweetness about 40. For fructose, its sweetness about 175. No, 145. And then for sucrose, sucrose is about 100. So let's compare them. Which of them do you think will be more sweeter?
Fructose.
Fructose, very good. Very good. Okay. Followed by what? Sucrose. And then glucose. This is why honey is very sweet. You realize that honey is so sweet that the aftertaste of the honey appear a bit bitter. Are you okay? And part of the reason has to do with its excessive sweetness. Are you okay? Which gives it the aftertaste. Are you okay? So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say here is that simple sugars, or let's say carbohydrates, have different levels of sweetness. That's why in some books they call it saccharide. Are you okay? Saccharide is a Latin word for sweet. Are you okay? Sweet. So saccharine or saccharide. That's why we have monosaccharide, simple sugar, basic, but very sweet. Disaccharide, then what? Polysaccharide. Are you okay? Now, again, carbohydrates, in terms of their characteristics, also exhibit what we call reducing property. Okay, I'll come back and emphasize so much on this. But let me wrap up today's class with the biological or physiological function of carbohydrates. Are you okay? What does carbohydrate do in the body? Are you okay? What does it do in the body? So physiological role of carbohydrates. Number one, they serve as what?
Source of energy.
Source of energy, very good. So they have a nutritional role. Are you okay? As what? Source of energy. So that's number one. Number two is that they also serve as what? Structural components of cells. They serve as what?
Structural components of cells.
Structural components. So they contribute to what? The overall structure of cell. Okay, they contribute to the overall structure of cells.
One.
Number three is that they serve as what? Raw materials to build other complex ones. The carbohydrates serve as what? Raw materials to enable us build very complex biomolecules. They serve as what? Raw materials to help build other complex what? Biomolecules. Okay, example was what I shared with you. You have glucose combining with what? Galactose in the mammary tissue of the breast to produce what? Lactose, which is the main carbohydrate in what? Breast milk. Are you okay? So what does it mean? The lactose will not be available or cannot be produced if the glucose and galactose are what? Not available. So what is the role of the glucose and the galactose here? They are serving as what? Raw material for the production of what? Lactose. Okay. Then the last one, maybe I need to show you this video and then I'll touch on that. Yeah, Abigail, your hand is up. Any question?
Yeah, please, no.
Okay. All right, so let me just share this with you. Forgive me for my silence. It's not deliberate. I just wanted to search for the right video for you.
this size. Hey. Caroline.
Caroline, please mute yourself, please.
Madam Caroline Mensa. Sister, wait. Sister Anita, but I say a small bit charity. Come on, some the green card. Assessment.
Mensa, please. Caroline Mensa, please.
It is well.
Oh, David.
In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about membrane receptors.
All right, so let's see. Please, can you all see my video?
It's blurred, please. Okay. It's getting better.
Hello?
Please, no.
No, sir.
Hey, Chai.
Membrane receptors are really important because they are the things that actually allow our cells to communicate with the outside world. Without membrane receptors...
Please, is the animation showing?
No, please.
No, please.
No. It's not showing.
Oh.
We are just seeing the written part.
Okay.
The subtitle, yes.
Even with the writing, it's very blurry. We can hardly see what is written.
Oh, really? Okay, let's watch this video. Let me see if maybe along the line it will come. If it doesn't, then I'll find a way of explaining it to you. So let's...
Our cells wouldn't be able to work together, and they wouldn't be able to form the human body as we know it. And so a membrane receptor is essentially an integral protein that is embedded in the cell membrane that takes part in communication with the outside environment. And so for short, I'm just going to say it's an integral protein that communicates with the outside environment. So the way membrane receptors work is that in our bodies, there are a bunch of these signaling molecules going around. We call these extracellular signaling molecules because they are outside our cells. So let's say this outside area is the extracellular portion. And let's say we have a pink signaling molecule. And for the sake of diagramming, I'm going to say it looks like a triangle. Now, in reality, of course, signaling molecules do not look like triangles. Signaling molecules can be a variety of things. They can be ions or molecules, essentially, that bind to another chemical entity. We also call these ligands. And a ligand can be something like a neurotransmitter, a hormone, cell recognition molecules. And what these can do is these can attach to our membrane receptors and trigger changes inside the cell. And I'm going to do the membrane receptors in a nice blue color. And remember, we say they're integral proteins, and integral proteins are proteins that go through the entire cell membrane. So let's say here we have our nice integral protein. And so what will happen essentially is this ligand will bind to our integral protein. And so this integral protein, which again appears in our cell membrane, will actually bind to that nice triangle-shaped ligand that we have, like this. And so now what we have is our ligand receptor complex. Just a fancy way of saying our ligand and our membrane receptor have bound. And once this happens, this can essentially tell the cell what to do. This can explain things like how hormones function, how our nerve impulses work, why our cells divide, cell death, It also explains why our cell allows certain things into the cell and other things not sometimes. In terms of a bigger real-world application, this is really critically important in designing pharmaceutical drugs. In fact, a very big percentage of pharmaceutical drugs actually target our membrane receptors. This is actually why some drugs can target specific cells, like some drugs might only target your liver, while other drugs might target your heart. And the reason why is because different cells might actually have different receptors, and these receptors might bind to things. This process of binding and telling the cell what to do, we actually have a really special name for it, and it's called transduction. So this is a process that we call signal transduction. What happens during signal transduction is an extracellular signal molecule, so this is our ligand, binds to our membrane receptor, and these receptor proteins then cause an intracellular response. And so after binding, there will be what's called an intracellular response. And so this receptor will bind to the protein, and this will cause the protein to actually change conformation, which then activates intracellular signaling proteins, so proteins on the intracellular side of the cell. And this activates a cascade of protein signals that will alter the behavior of our cell. Sounds really complicated. Essentially, the way this works is we have an original signal, our ligand, and this can be, again, a hormone, a neurotransmitter, something like that. And this original signal is passed along. It'll bind to our protein, and that protein will tell other proteins inside the cell about what's going on. And this signal is propagated throughout the cell, causing the cell to perform a specific function. Now, you'll notice that in the diagram, we actually drew a really specific shape for our ligand. We chose a triangle. Now, I chose a triangle because it's a little easier to draw, but this triangle actually fits right into the protein that I was drawing, which has like an empty triangle space. This is actually really important. Each specific receptor, so the thing that's missing a triangle, can only bind to a few types and often only one specific type of ligand. So it can only bind that specific triangle pinked ligand. Membrane receptors allow our body and cells to transfer information, and it can be very, very specific about it. This is important because when our body releases a hormone, it's kind of floating around in our entire bloodstream. How does our pancreas know that the hormone's intended for it? How would our heart cells not react to it? And this is why. The membrane receptors have a very specific preference for certain specific types of ligands. This is what we call our lock and key model. So if we imagine our ligand as the key and our receptor protein as a lock, our receptor protein as a lock needs a very specific type of key in order to open it. So just like how our keychain, we might have a key to our mailbox and a key to our front door, maybe a key to our desk. Each of these keys does something different and opens a different lock. And that's kind of how our cells work. Now, I just want to make a note that this is a slightly outdated model, and our updated model is actually what we call induced fit. And these two concepts are very similar, but instead of saying that the ligands and the membrane receptors have very, very specific shape, induced fit brings a little more flexibility, and it says the ligands and the membrane receptors can sometimes change conformations, kind of like how dough can be a little squishy so that they can fit each other. Now, overall, there are still a ton of new membrane receptors that are being discovered. As far as we know, we can group membrane receptors into 3 large groups. The first group we call ligand-gated ion channels. The second group we call G-protein coupled receptors. And lastly, our third group we call enzyme-linked receptors. Now, in summary, essentially we have really important membrane receptors in our cell membrane, and these are integral proteins that allow our cells to communicate with the outside environment. And the process in which these integral proteins work, these membrane receptors work, is that we have a ligand, which can be an ion or a molecule. It can bind to our integral protein, causing a process that we call signal transduction. And signal transduction essentially means that our original signal, our ligand, is propagated throughout the cell as different proteins are activated, causing our intracellular response.
All right. Please, could you see any picture?
No, please.
Yes, sir.
No, please.
No, please. It's blur.
No,
No,
please.
please. Very
Please,
blurry. We
it's
can't
blur.
see anything.
It's okay. It's okay. Right. So
No,
let's go back to our board. And let me just demonstrate what you saw in the video. Okay. So what we are saying is that supposing okay, please can you see my page?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Okay.
yes.
So supposing this is a cell membrane. So here is the outside of the cell. And here is the inside of what? The cell. Are you okay? So this is the inside where we have the cytoplasm. Okay. And then this is the outside of the cell. So usually you would have several fluid bathing the plasma membrane of the cell. So this is the outside of the cell. And then now, for substances to be able to move from here, from outside into inside, are you okay? Some molecules, especially the very small ones, can easily diffuse through the membrane unhindered, like the gases and then small non-polar molecules. Are you okay? But largely, many substances are hindered from easily entering into the cell across the plasma membrane. So to ensure that such substances are able to enter, there is a particular group of what? Substances, or usually proteins, or let me say glycoproteins. Are you okay? Which they traverse what? The plasma membrane. By traversing, what I mean is that they cut through the plasma membrane. So part of them is in the outside, inside, and part of them is where? In the outside. Now, what do they do? Supposing this were a liver cell, are you okay? And you have a lot of glucose in the outside molecule, maybe after you've eaten some banku or whatever. Following digestion, the glucose is absorbed into your bloodstream. And this glucose is often released into your what we call interstitial fluid. These fluid often bath the cells. So you have a lot of glucose molecules. Let's say these are the glucose molecules. Before the glucose molecules can enter into this cell to be used to generate energy, it must be able to what? Identify its transport point or its doorway into the cell. That doorway is what we call receptor. Let's say it together, receptor.
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 Okay. So what does the receptor do? The receptor will first come in contact with the glucose. Upon identifying that this is glucose, it will communicate it to this transporter, this unit, which is a transporter. And the transporter will make the door open so that the glucose can now easily enter and then be found inside the cell. Are you okay? Now, this receptor unit, are you okay, is very, very crucial, because if it doesn't pick this nutrient signal, it wouldn't communicate to the transporter to make way for this substance. And if the way is not made for this nutrient, it can by no means enter into the cell. So it will continue to just wander around and not be able to enter into the cell. Many times, for the cells to allow a lot of nutrients into them, for instance, the case of glucose, your body may produce a lot of what we call hormones. So let me use that of glucose, for example. After a high carbohydrate diet, and this is without recourse to you being ill or whatever, even in a healthy state, it's okay. You eat a heavy carbohydrate diet like a banku or rice or porridge or beverage or whatever. A lot of the glucose enter into the blood, so your blood glucose level will rise. Once it rises, many of the glucose enters into the pancreas, and then the pancreas realizes that there's an increased level of what? Glucose. So the pancreas will release a lot of what? Insulin. Now, the insulin, what does it do? Will be picked up by the receptors. We call it insulin receptors. Are you okay? They will be picked up by receptors on the liver or receptors on the muscle, or sometimes receptors on other cells of the body. And those receptors, what do? They communicate to the glucose channels or glucose transporters to open up and allow glucose to enter. So a lot of the glucose will enter into the cell. So as they enter into the cell, what is happening? The glucose that was abundant in the blood is now entering into various cells. So what happens to the glucose level? You will see that the glucose level in the blood begins to what? Drop. That is why usually for diabetics who are unable to produce insulin, you give them an insulin shot after or sometimes just before a high carbohydrate diet, or sometimes a few minutes after a high carbohydrate diet, and realize that their glucose level begin to fall and then they are normal. Are you okay? So this molecule here, which picks up the nutrients or the hormone or the signal, is what we call the receptor. And we are saying that the receptor may be made up of what? Carbohydrates. Are you okay? Usually, it may not contain only carbohydrates. It may contain, or it may be made up of carbohydrate and maybe protein. So we call it glycoprotein. Are you okay? Shall we say it together? Glycoprotein.
Glycoprotein.
Yes.
Glycoprotein.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So in a nutshell, these are the four main functions of carbohydrates in the body. There's four main physiological functions of carbohydrates in the body. Number one, they serve as what? Fuel for energy generation to drive various physiological activities. Okay. Number two, they serve as what? Structural components for building up receptors on the cells of the body. So they are structural components. Are you okay? For building up what? Receptors on the cells or on the membranes of the cells of the body. Number three, they also serve as what? Raw materials for producing large and complex biomolecules. Are you okay? They serve as what? Raw materials. Then number four, which is the last one, is that they can also serve as what? Receptors. Are you okay? They can serve as receptors on the membranes of what? Living cells. So let me just end it here for today. Hopefully next week we'll complete carbohydrates, or maybe we'll start with proteins. Please, any question? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Hello,
any
sir.
question? Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah,
please,
Mariama.
sir. Thank you very much for the lectures. And what I want to know is, are we getting the slides anytime soon?
No, I'm not done yet, and I can't promise that you have it now.
Sir.
Hello.
We are begging.
Oh, you shouldn't beg. I mean, what?
Sir. I'm pleading with you.
Oh, no, please don't go there. I told you, yes.
Please, some of us just joined, okay? We missed last week lecture, so can you please?
Oh, last week I just introduced you to the concept. Are you okay? And essentially, I just introduced you to the phenomenon of biomolecules. I think, and then the definition of biochemistry. So we said that biomolecules are what? Chemical substances or chemical molecules which occur in living cells and interact among themselves to influence the structure, the function, and the health of living cells. Okay, and then today we went further to look at the various classes of what? Biomolecules. Are you okay?
Okay.
So, yeah, we haven't done
it.
All right. Thank you.
So,
Yes, maybe one last question. Please don't waste time.
The glucose food intake with the explanation you just completed.
Okay.
So please let me, sorry, if I get you. So you mean after taking the food, maybe consuming your rice or whatever,
yes,
it gets into the bloodstream.
Yes.
And if it gets into the bloodstream, the glucose level rises.
Yes.
And then you have insulin receptors that are being released.
No, insulin is released by the pancreas on sensing that the blood glucose level has risen.
Okay.
And the first organ that's able to pick up that signal in your blood is the pancreas.
Okay.
So once it picks up that signal, then it realizes that, hey, we need to bring it down. So what do? Then it releases what? Insulin.
Okay, so meaning
So that is
Yeah.
why the diabetics usually have problem with the regulating their sugar level because of the inadequacy of the pancreas, either producing enough insulin and the rest.
Oh, for some of the diabetes, I didn't want to go there because it's a bit tricky. But maybe just to clarify one point, for some, diabetes has different causes in relation to insulin production and all that. Are you okay? But maybe just one. For the type 2, are you okay? Which is usually lifestyle.
Yes. Lifestyle, yes.
Many cases, what happens is that they can produce enough insulin, but the insulin receptor is not available.
Okay.
So they are not responding adequately to what?
Okay.
To the insulin.
Yes.
Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
So the insulin is being produced by the pancreas in great measure, but the receptors are not there. So they can't pick up the insulin and they can't respond. So we call it insulin resistance.
Okay.
Are you okay? So, and that is usually the underlying cause of most of the type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. When they become resistant to the receptors are resistant to what? Insulin.
The insulin, okay.
They can't respond. You know, there